Here's something that'll blow your mind. In Japan, parents almost never tell their kids, good job, or you're so smart. Sounds harsh, right? Like they're being cold or emotionally distant. But here's what shocked me. Child psychologists around the world are now saying this might be one of the smartest parenting strategies ever developed. And the results? Japanese kids consistently rank among the most resilient, independent, and emotionally intelligent children globally. Stay with me because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you think about raising confident kids. Let's dive in. The praise paradox. Why good job might be hurting your child. Let me tell you something that most Western parents find absolutely mind-blowing. In Japan, when a 5-year-old successfully ties their shoes for the first time, the typical parent doesn't shower them with, "You're so talented," or "What a smart kid." Instead, they might simply say, "You worked hard on that. Here's why this matters more than you think." Stanford psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck spent over 30 years researching this exact phenomenon, and her findings are revolutionary. She discovered that children who receive ability-based praise, like "you're so smart" or "you're naturally gifted," actually develop what she calls a fixed mindset. These kids start believing their abilities are set in stone. They're either good at something or they're not. The shocking consequence? When these children face challenges, they're more likely to give up. Why? Because struggling means they might not be smart after all, and that's terrifying to them. Now contrast this with Japanese children who receive effort-based acknowledgment. A groundbreaking 2019 study published in the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology tracked 2,400 children across Tokyo, New York, and London for 5 years. The results? Japanese children showed 37% higher persistence when facing difficult tasks and reported 28% less anxiety about failure. You know what's crazy? We've been conditioned to think that building self-esteem means constant praise. But Japanese parents understand something profound. True confidence doesn't come from being told you're great. It comes from overcoming challenges through effort. But that's not the only reason Japanese parents avoid praise. There's something even deeper going on here. Now here's where it gets really interesting. There's a famous Japanese proverb, "Deru kugi wa utareru," which literally translates to, "The nail that sticks out gets hammered down." Before you freak out and think this is about crushing individuality, let me explain what it actually means in the context of parenting. Japanese culture operates on a principle called shudan shugi, or group harmony, but, and this is critical, it's not about eliminating individuality, it's about understanding that your personal success is interconnected with the success of those around you. Here's a real-world example that perfectly illustrates this. I spoke with Yuki Nakamura, a child development researcher at Waseda University in Tokyo, who shared this story. A 7-year-old boy in her study won first place in a school art competition. His American classmates' parents threw a celebration party focused entirely on their child. The Japanese boy's parents? They thanked him for representing his class well and asked him to help his classmates improve their techniques. Sounds cold? Here's the plot twist. When researchers followed up with these children at age 18, the Japanese child reported significantly higher life satisfaction, better peer relationships, and, surprisingly, more creative confidence. Why? Because his sense of accomplishment wasn't fragile and dependent on being the best. It was rooted in contribution and growth. Dr. Takashi Yamamoto, a clinical psychologist specializing in child development, explains it brilliantly. When you praise a child for being special, you create anxiety. They must maintain being special. When you acknowledge their effort and contribution, you give them a tool they can use forever. The data backs this up. A 2021 comparative study showed that Japanese teenagers exhibited 42% lower rates of narcissistic traits compared to their Western counterparts, while maintaining equal levels of self-worth. That's not a coincidence. But wait, you're probably wondering, if they don't praise, what do they say to their kids? That's where the real magic happens. What Japanese parents say instead, the power of ganbat. Let's be honest. If you don't praise your kids, what are you supposed to say? This is where Japanese parenting gets absolutely fascinating. The word you'll hear constantly in Japanese households is ganbat. It's usually translated as do your best or keep going, but that translation doesn't even come close to capturing its real meaning. Ganbate is a philosophy wrapped in a word. It means, I see your effort, I believe in your ability to persist. You have the strength to overcome this. Here's how this plays out in everyday situations. Western scenario, child brings home a test with 95%. Parent, wow, you're so smart, I'm so proud of you. Japanese scenario, child brings home a test with 95%. Parent, I can see you studied hard. What did you learn from the questions you missed? See the difference? The Western response focuses on the outcome and innate ability. The Japanese response focuses on the process and growth opportunity. Dr. Yuki Shimizu, who runs the Tokyo Institute for Child Psychology, conducted an eye-opening experiment. She gave 200 children, 100 Japanese, 100 American, a puzzle that was deliberately too difficult to solve. After 10 minutes, Japanese children were 3.2 times more likely to ask for a harder puzzle next, while American children were more likely to ask for an easier one. The reason? Japanese children had been conditioned to see difficulty as an opportunity to grow, not as evidence of inadequacy. But here's my favorite part, and honestly, this is where Western parents could learn the most. Japanese parents use a technique called mimamoru, which means to watch over and trust. Instead of jumping in with praise or solutions, they give their children space to struggle, fail, and figure things out. I know what you're thinking. But don't kids need encouragement? Absolutely. But there's a massive difference between encouragement and praise. Encouragement. This is challenging, and I believe you can work through it. Praise. You're amazing because you succeeded. One builds internal resilience. The other builds dependence on external validation. And speaking of external validation, there's another psychological principle at play here that most parents completely miss. Quick thing before we continue. If you're finding this valuable and it's making you rethink your parenting approach, do me a favor and smash that like button. Seriously, it helps the widefund algorithm show this to more parents who need to hear it. And subscribe if you want more psychology-backed parenting insights like this. I've got some mind-blowing content coming up. Hit the bell so you don't miss it. Now, let's get back to the most fascinating part of Japanese parenting psychology, the neuroscience behind it, intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Now, here's where the science gets really crazy. What Japanese parents have been doing for centuries, neuroscientists are now confirming with brain scans and longitudinal studies. There are two types of motivation that drive human behavior. Extrinsic, external rewards like praise, grades, trophies, and intrinsic, internal satisfaction from the activity itself. Dr. Edward Dichi and Dr. Richard Ryan at the University of Rochester spent 4 decades researching this through their self-determination theory. Their findings? Extrinsic motivation actually undermines intrinsic motivation. Here's the kicker. When you praise a child for being smart, you're giving them an extrinsic reward. Their brain starts releasing dopamine, not from the learning itself, but from your approval. Over DPOI4C, their brain literally gets rewired to seek the praise rather than the mastery. A 2020 neuroimaging study at Kyoto University compared brain activity in Japanese and American children while completing challenging tasks. Japanese children showed 34% more activation in the prefrontal cortex, the area associated with self-regulation and intrinsic motivation. American children showed more activation in the reward processing centers, the areas that light up when expecting external rewards. Translation: Japanese parenting methods literally build different neural pathways. But here's what really blew my mind. Dr. Hiroshi Azuma, one of Japan's leading developmental psychologists, discovered something called the AMA relationship. It's this beautiful concept of interdependence where children feel secure enough to struggle because they know their parents' support isn't conditional on success. Think about that for a second. Western praise often says, "I love how smart you are." Japanese support says, "I'm here regardless of the outcome." One creates performance anxiety, the other creates psychological safety. A 2018 study tracking 1,500 children into adulthood found that those raised with intrinsic motivation were 2.3 times more likely to pursue challenging careers, reported higher life satisfaction, and had lower rates of depression and anxiety disorders. You know what's funny? We've created an entire industry around building children's self-esteem, when maybe the real secret is getting out of their way and letting them build their own. But there's one more critical piece to this puzzle that ties everything together. Here's something most parents don't want to hear. Your job isn't to raise a happy child. Your job is to raise a competent adult. I know that sounds harsh, but stick with me. Japanese parents operate with a completely different timeline than most Western parents. They're not optimizing for today's happiness. They're building skills for lifetime resilience. There's a concept in Japanese parenting called ikiru chikara, literally, the power to live. It's about equipping children with the ability to navigate life independently, handle setbacks, and contribute meaningfully to society. Let me share a powerful example. In Japan, it's completely normal to see 6-year-olds riding the subway alone to school. Before you call Child Protective Services, understand that this isn't neglect. It's intentional competence building. These children have been gradually prepared through years of scaffolded independence. Compare that to the US, where a 2015 survey found that 68% of parents don't let their 12-year-olds walk to school alone. The result? Dr. Peter Gray at Boston College documented a direct correlation between decreased childhood independence and increased rates of anxiety and depression in young adults. Here's the data that really drives this home. A comprehensive 2019 study by the OECD compared life readiness skills in 15-year-olds across 37 countries. Japanese teens ranked first in problem-solving in real-life contexts, second in emotional regulation, and third in collaborative skills, despite ranking much lower in self-reported happiness. But here's the beautiful irony. When researchers followed up with these same individuals at age 25, the Japanese participants reported the highest life satisfaction and lowest regret about their upbringing. Dr. Sachiko Nakano, who led a 20-year longitudinal study on Japanese parenting outcomes, puts it perfectly. We don't praise children for doing what they should be able to do. We acknowledge their growth. There's a profound difference. Praise creates a ceiling. You've arrived. Acknowledgement creates a path. You're progressing. The research is crystal clear. Children raised with effort-based acknowledgement rather than ability-based praise develop 47% higher resilience when facing setbacks, 52% better emotional regulation in stressful situations, 38% stronger intrinsic motivation in academic and personal pursuits, 31% lower rates of anxiety disorders in late adolescence. And here's something that'll make you rethink everything. Japanese parents who immigrate to Western countries and adopt Western praise patterns, their children lose these advantages within a single generation. The method isn't genetic, it's entirely about the parenting approach. So what's the bottom line here? Okay, so you're probably thinking, this is fascinating, but I'm not Japanese. How do I actually use this? Great question. You don't need to abandon your culture or move to Tokyo. But you can integrate these principles starting today. Here's your practical action plan. Replace this. You're so smart, or you're so talented. With this, I noticed how hard you worked on that, or your practice is really paying off. Replace this. Good job. For everything. With this, what did you learn from that, or what was the hardest part? Replace this. Solving problems for your child with this. This looks challenging. What have you tried so far? Replace this. Celebrating outcomes only. With this, acknowledging effort regardless of outcome. Here's a real-world example from my friend Sarah, who implemented this with her 8-year-old son struggling with math. She stopped saying, "You're getting it, you're so good at this," and started saying, "You're sticking with it even though it's frustrating." That's real strength. Within 3 months, his math teacher reported a complete transformation, not in his grades, those improved too, but in his willingness to tackle difficult problems without shutting down. The secret? She rewired his relationship with challenge. Dr. Madeline Levine, author of The Price of Privilege, studied this exact transition with 300 American families. Those who shifted from praise-heavy to effort-focused language saw measurable improvements in their children's resilience scores within 6 to 8 weeks. One critical rule: don't fake it. Kids have incredible BS detectors. If you're just swapping words without changing your mindset, they'll sense it. This requires you to genuinely value effort over outcome. And here's the thing: this isn't just about your kids. When you stop needing them to be the best, to feel like a successful parent, you free yourself from that anxiety too. It's liberation for the whole family. So here's what we've uncovered today. Japanese parents avoid praise not because they're cold, but because they understand that true confidence comes from internal growth, not external validation. They're playing the long game, building adults who can handle life's challenges, not children who need constant reassurance. The 3 key takeaways: 1. Focus on effort, not ability. 2. Create psychological safety through unconditional support. 3. Let your kids struggle. It's where the real growth happens. Now here's my question for you. Which would you rather have? A child who believes they're naturally gifted, or a child who believes they can grow through effort? Drop your answer in the comments, A or B. I'm genuinely curious where you all stand on this. And if this challenged your thinking about parenting, make sure you're subscribed because my next video is going to blow your mind even more. I'm breaking down 7 Japanese parenting rules that raise independent kids. And some of these will seem absolutely wild if you're used to Western parenting. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. And remember, you're not raising children, you're raising future adults. Make it count.